Hello. We are back with another episode of Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Paige, of course. And I wanted to just make this episode about life and what I've been going through, where I've been the last week in my head and my heart, and what's been coming up for me because I feel like that's the point of all of this is to make it relatable. And I feel like if I'm going through it, then there's got to be somebody else out there that is experiencing it too. And so we're going to dive right in. I'm so grateful to have you here. And I feel like I can finally take a deep breath. I know that the last few weeks I have shared that life has been absolutely cuckoo bananas crazy. And I am happy to report that this week things have settled a bit. So we're excited about that. And we're going to dive right in. The first thing that I'm going to just say it. I had to give myself a reality check over the last couple weeks. And why, you might ask? Well, because another little spiral that I had in the midst of all of this chaos of life was over how many views and likes I was getting on social media. Yes, I fell into the trap. And before I could get fully sucked in, luckily my self awareness kicked in and waved its white flag because that's the whole point. That's the whole point of having self-awareness. It's not that we're never going to feel these things that bring us discomfort. It's the fact that it is the tool that we've attained so that we don't fall into the rabbit hole that we used to of negative thoughts and comparison. Again, it's not going to prevent us from having those thoughts, but it allows us to be the observer of them and just walk ourselves out of it in a much quicker, more efficient, and loving way. And I don't know, like I literally had to just eat a slice of humble pie because at the end of the day, like who the fuck cares? Like who the fuck cares? Social media is a beautiful tool. It is a beautiful tool of connection. It is a beautiful tool that allows us to be able to share our messages and be of service. It allows us to utilize it for entertainment. It allows us to, at this point, like use TikTok like Google and find information and do research, whatever it is. But it's also not the end all be all. It's also not most of the time reality. And I think that we have to be able to humble ourselves enough to realize that. Because if not, it's just this machine that can like wire its way into our brains and start to take over. We can start to compare ourselves to the things that we see, and we don't even know if what we're seeing is real. We don't know if it's photoshopped. We don't know if it's hid behind a filter. We don't know if it's, you know, $3,000 makeup and extensions that are making someone appear the way that they do. We don't know these people that we consume online. And I think that that can get really, really tricky. We have to be able to recognize that and realize that as we are consuming, because as we're consuming all of these people's energy. So we have to protect ourselves. But also, we're giving our energy to when we are creating. And so, creating intention and creating boundaries around that is really powerful. And I've noticed, like, as I had this realization or as I caught myself, like, really getting caught up on the numbers or comparing myself to the numbers that other people were getting, I had to realize that, like, I also too have to protect myself and my energy so that it's not getting pulled out and pulled away to all of these other people and into this big, giant machine. Because at the end of the day, we get so wrapped up in our own shit and in our own heads and in our own lives that we start to believe that like everything is about us. And personally, like the likes and the views, can become attached to our identity of like whether or not people perceive us to be acceptable or smart or pretty. And it's just not that deep. Like social media at that point, like, yeah, you're going to find things that you're going to connect with on a deep way. And I think that that's beautiful. I think that that's part of my mission is to be that in this realm. But you also have to be able to like separate yourself enough from it to not take it so personally. And then for me, I have had to remind myself, like, that is why I'm here. That is why I am sharing my message, why I choose to live my life the way that I do. And even though like everything in me wants to push and force and climb my way to the next destination, like that's not actually the point. The point is that I'm not here to feed the machine. I'm not here to influence. I'm here to make an impact. And when that dropped in for me, it felt so loving and it felt so warm. And it felt like this beautiful reminder that even though we can utilize these tools and these spaces and these communities and this connection, we don't have to allow ourselves to take it all so personally. We get to separate ourselves from it and almost like look at it as a business, even though it is very personal. The intention behind it is personal, but the way it is received is actually not our business. It can't be. It can't be because if it is constantly, then we're going to start to alter ourselves and our message to be more digestible, to be what people want to consume versus what we are actually meant to share. And that doesn't mean that we can't have fun with trends and like, give our input on the things that like people are excited about and want to hear about. But you have to recognize and realize that you're doing it with the intention of why you started to begin with. And, another point is that no matter how many people run across your content, like that ripple effect of its existence in the world is actually making a difference. Maybe it's making a difference in the people who actually know you who are consuming your content. Maybe it's a stranger who happened to scroll by one of your photos and then deep dive on your profile. Maybe you posted a message at exactly the time that somebody else needed to hear it. And I watched somebody on TikTok one time share, if you're in like the, 200 to 300 view jail or like 700 view jail, and you envision that many people standing in a room listening to what you have to say for 2 minutes, can you imagine how that would make you feel? Can you imagine how like validated and special and important that would make you feel? And again, you get to this point to where you receive that and then it's like, okay, now that's not enough. Like you get excited to hit those numbers and then it's like, okay, now that's not enough. It's a continual progression. And if you don't check yourself, if you don't give yourself that reality check and attain self awareness around it, that's only going to continue to grow and grow and grow more and more as you expand, as you continue to do this work and allow yourself to be seen in this way as a creator, as someone who is trying to put a healing message out into the world. That can even be for people who are artists or comedians or whatever. It doesn't matter what your art is or what it is that you're creating. We can all get caught up in that hamster wheel. And oh, like it can be hard sometimes to be on the receiving end of these tools. We all get that like end of the month report of our analytics or whatever, where they're analyzing our data and telling us how many more followers we got or views we got or whatever it is. I try not to look at it too often. Hell, I try not to even look at how many views my podcast gets until I go back and upload the next week's episode because that's not why I'm doing it. Yeah, like, do I want it to attract more and more people? Do I want this message to be of service? Do I want this to be a part of the ways in which that I make income to support my family and my livelihood? Absolutely. But at the core and at the foundation and at the intention, it's not why I sit down in this chair every week. Like, I get excited because I feel as though there is a message to share that is going to make the world a better place, that's going to find the person that it's meant to and make a difference, even if it's just in their day. And as the numbers go up, as the views, as the followers increase, like, yeah, it can fuel your ego when things are going really good, but they can also be a real slap in the face when it's moving in the opposite direction. And I think that that's the double-edged sword, right? Like, we want to be seen, but then, like, with being seen online, like, is also going to come criticism or people, inputting their opinions, or people who just utilize this space as a way to, like, work out their own aggression in their life and project it onto other people. And so we have to do the work around it. We have to do the work around it, or we just become another piece of the machine, and we can become victim to it. Um, I know so many people who have done this work and are continuing to do this work, the people that I have conversations with and that I lean on whenever it's like fucking with my head. But yet we still open the app and anticipate how many notifications are going to pop up on the bottom of the screen. I mean, I know I do it every single time. It doesn't matter what I tell myself. Every single time I open that and I see those notifications pop up, it's like when they're high, it's like, oh, that feels good. Like, that feels good. We're human. We're human. Of course, that's going to feel good, especially if we're being vulnerable, especially if we're expressing something that's really raw to us. It's like, okay, I feel seen and validated. And that fear of being so vulnerable can diminish a little bit. It's like we have to own that. Okay. There's no point in beating around the bush around it, but it's also like what you do with that afterwards. And, you know, I don't see them, thankfully, because until I open the app, because I don't have any of my notifications turned on, because I feel like that would be really distracting. Social media is distracting enough the way that it is, that if I was to have notifications turned on my actual phone, I think that, my brain would probably melt into a pile of goo. So, we're not gonna do that. Like, we're not gonna do that. And it's funny the things that the algorithm latches onto. We can't we can't determine it. Like, it is literally this thing beyond our understanding, because we could put the most enlightening, profound, inspirational message out into social media, and it's going to be the freaking crash out that you have over a TV show you're watching in the school pickup line that's going to go viral and get the most views. Yes. Yes. I am talking from personal experience here. I have spent weeks, 21 weeks specifically, including this week, curating podcast clips from this podcast and posting them online. And the one thing that has gotten me the most views and likes and comments and engagement and followers is a crash out that I had over the summer I turned pretty, and being back, feeling like I'm back in the early 2000s where I have to wait week by week to watch a TV show. And so that took literally no effort. It was just relatable. It was just relatable. It didn't mean that I said anything profoundly funny or inspirational. I literally was just relatable. And the algorithm grabbed onto it and has pushed it out there. I mean, we're going on weeks now that this video just keeps getting pushed out further and further and further. And guess what? It's fun. It's fun. But when I open my phone, I like catch myself even now, like, I see the notifications at the bottom, but I don't, like, always check them, because I feel like with this example, with this situation, it's like, okay, I'm learning. What is this teaching me? This is teaching me that I don't have to take it personally, that I can enjoy it and have fun and comment and engage and, all of those things. But I don't have to have my identity so wrapped up in it. And I can just share what I feel the need to share. And I've heard other people talk about this on TikTok and Instagram. It's like using your social media. I think Mel Robbins maybe had like said something about this. I'm not sure. But it's like using social media as your own time capsule. And I love looking at it that way because it's like, this is a representation of where I am now. What's important to me now? What is coming up for me now? And these are the messages that I am feeling called to share and the ways that I am using it to be of service. And it's also like preserving this current time in my life. And that's art. Like it's just a form of art. And I think that that is what has been making it more and more fun for me. I'm feeling less pressure to create and just more excitement about it. And I'm not overthinking it. And I'm not, putting this notion on any of it that it has to be perfect or that it has to compare to what somebody else is doing. And, I think that again, that's another part of that self awareness is that you get to create social media content with the intention that you feel called to share it with. And while you're doing that, also mindfully consuming what else is out there. And I've had to unfollow people. Like, I've had to unfollow people that have a beautiful message, a beautiful story, but their truth or the way in which they were sharing it started triggering me. And maybe it was triggering me because I was comparing myself to their numbers or comparing myself to their looks or comparing myself to their life and the way in which I perceived it. Doesn't mean that it's true or it's the reality. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what they're doing and how they're saying it. It's just that it was affecting me in a way that was creating an unhealthy imbalance for my relationship with this tool. And I think that that's smart for all of us. I think that it is a way for us to be mindful of how we love ourselves and show up for ourselves and not allowing other things out there in the world to make us feel small. And it's not because of what another person is doing, but for me, it was by the voice in my head creeping in again and telling me that everything I was doing was wrong. And that comes from having perspective, having self awareness. It's about understanding yourself enough to be able to know when to put yourself in check. And I have gotten pretty familiar with who I am. And even though that hasn't always been super fun, I am grateful for it because I think that we get put into positions in our lives to continually learn lessons. And there was a version of me just even like a year ago or 2 years ago that was crossing my fingers and toes every single time I posted something because I wanted to go viral, because I felt like that was going to be some epitome of success or that I was going to attain all of these followers and that was going to make me something that was going to prove that I was worth it. And again, if that would have happened at that point in time, that wouldn't have served my highest good because I was not doing it with the intention of serving my highest good. I wasn't doing it with the intention of being in alignment with divine will. I was doing it with the intention of serving my ego, making me feel safe and accepted and validated within the world. And now the lessons that I've learned and the work that I've had to do on myself between then and now has been around my identity, has been around my self-worth, has been around what it is that I am going to give permission to validate me in this life, in this existence. Guess what? I'm not handing that over to anything else anymore. Like that's mine. I get to give that to myself by being all that I am, by showing up and being comfortable in my own skin and standing on a foundation of my values and setting the intentions of living in alignment with that divine will. And so it's like I have been over the course of the last few years, like setting myself up to be able to be successful in this realm and not attaching my identity to it. And now that's going to ebb and flow. It's not like if you learn that lesson and it's fucking perfect. No, it's going to ebb and flow, but it's also going to make all of it that much more special because I am not putting all of my self-worth into other people's perceptions of me or other people's acceptance of me. Like, that's never going to leave me. My self-worth is never going to leave me. I am never going to abandon myself again for the sake of what other people think or how they view me, my life, my beliefs, what I say it, how I look, etc. And I don't know, that makes me really proud of myself. That makes me really excited for myself. And I'm sure that when I have moments where I'm sliding back into those old patterns, that I'm going to have to come back and listen to this freaking podcast episode myself and like remind myself, hey, listen, this is why we started. This is why we're here. This validation is great. We can appreciate it and be grateful for it. The consumption of our content in a profound way, in a beautiful, loving way, in a supportive way. And we can understand that there's going to be negative side effects to that. But that is its own, that is its own entity. We are not that. That is not a reflection of who we are. And I think it's easy. I think it's so easy to be distracted by all of these things, especially because social media is so easily accessible. I mean, I find myself reaching for my phone all of the time when I need a distraction. It's like a commercial comes on a TV show and I'm like, "Oh, jump on social media," or, "Oh, pick up my phone." It's like a natural instinct, a natural habit. Anytime you have a break, anytime you go to the bathroom, it's like that's what you do, right? Like you just naturally pick up your phone. And lately I have found myself, especially with all of the chaos going on, like reaching for my phone as a distraction. And it works. It works. We can lose so much time scrolling or creating. Like there's sometimes where we have to like put a cap on that. Like I'm not even going to create. I can write it down on a sticky note if something drops in. I don't have to create it right now. And so I have to put in boundaries with these apps. And sometimes does it work? Yes. Sometimes does it not? Yeah. Again, because I'm human and I'm imperfect and life is batshit crazy. So duh. And that's what I do. I have my data turned off from 9 p.m. until 8 a.m. I think. Yeah, it's 8 a.m. So that it's not the last thing I do at night before I go to bed. It's not the first thing I reach for in the morning. I don't allow myself to pick up my phone first thing in the morning, except on the weekends. Like on the weekends, I'm like, okay, you can lay in bed and scroll for a little bit if you want. But during the week, it's like, no, you have to like get up, take care of yourself, pack the kids' lunches, and get them up for school. That is just going to be a distraction that you don't need. That's also going to suck energy from your brain that you need to utilize when you're trying to get 3 girls ready and out the door for the day. And so those boundaries are really helpful. Now, are there times where I can ignore my time limit? Yeah, I'm an adult. I can do that. But do I try not to? Is it like that extra little reminder for me like, "Hey, do you really want to be doing this right now?" Yeah, and I think that that again is helpful. I also have a time limit set on TikTok and Instagram because those are the only 2 social media apps that I have on my phone, and it's a limit for an hour. So then even if I ignore it, like even if I hit that hour and then I ignore it the rest of the day, I'm also like aware. I'm aware of how much time I have spent on that app. And I think that that is a really just easy gift that I've given to myself. And because I have also noticed that as much connection and creativity and fun that these things can bring into our lives, they can also separate us from actually living and being in the present moment. And I have this conversation with my oldest, who's 13, a lot because she's like, well, when are you going to let me get social media? Or are you going to let me get social media? And I, in my beliefs in our home, you know, I tell her, the reason why I don't allow you to have social media at 13 years old is because I know how hard it is for me as a 33-year-old woman to create boundaries around these apps and how it can affect my mental health in a way that requires energy and attention for me to unravel and do the work around. She's 13 and doesn't have the capacity for that in her life all of the time. Yes. Am I a parent that shows up to give her the tools that she can utilize to navigate these things in a healthier way? Absolutely. But is she at a point in her life that she is willing to absorb them and integrate them into her life? Not usually. Okay. Anybody with a teenager can attest to that. Like, they're not always the most willing to absorb what it is that you have to say. And that's okay. That's part of her age. It's part of her learning who she is and figuring herself out. But it reduces this extra layer of confusion and comparison and, you know, work that she would have to do, energy that would be absorbed in having access to these platforms. And so I tell her that I have those honest conversations with her. Like, it is hard enough for me. It is hard enough for me to create boundaries. I don't think you're ready for that kind of work. And I don't want to create a vulnerability in you just yet where you are attaching any of your identity to these apps and to these platforms. And that doesn't mean that it will be a never. We talk about the differences in the apps. We talk about what I think I would feel comfortable with. And, I don't ever like to lock myself into boxes with things because, um, that can change. Life can change. I never like to say never because life can change. But I'm always having the conversation and I'm always checking myself because I know that the example that I set is going to be the one that my daughters absorb. And I am one of the first places that they will learn it because it doesn't matter what I tell them, it's what they see. And if I don't have boundaries for myself, how am I supposed to fully implement boundaries for them? And I think, which is another thing that I could do a whole episode about, is that there's a lot of times that kids get a bad rap for having these obsessions with social media and technology. But I'm a firm believer in us as parents having to check ourselves just as much. Because if we could check our screen time and if we can notice how often we're picking up our phones, especially at the end of the day when we're exhausted and drained and we just want to doom scroll to our little heart's desire, like, is that really that far off from our kids? Like, where are they seeing it? You know? Is it something that is a household condition that needs to be addressed? I don't know. Every family is different. Everybody's lives are different. But these are just the questions that I ask myself because, again, my parents are going to do as I do. They're not going to do as I say most of the time. And I just think it's important. I think it's important for us to be self aware. I think it's important for us to reflect. I think it's important for us to check ourselves over and over and over again, especially when we have this much accessibility to other people and their quote unquote lives. Because I say quote unquote lives because we don't actually know them. We don't actually know them, but we are consuming so much of their life that we think that we do. And we're going to only be able to consume what they allow us to. And then we're making our own perceptions of it. So, again, self-awareness, my friend, self-awareness, and implement some boundaries. Implement some boundaries with these apps. If you do already implement some boundaries that work really well for you, your family, your kids, I would love to know what they are. Please share them with me, whether you like send me a DM or leave a comment. I would love to, learn some more and see what other people out there are doing. So, or come say hi over on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook at Turn the Page Podcast and tell me over there. I would appreciate it. Um, but yeah, that's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you once again for being here. I appreciate you. I would love it if you would leave a rate, a review, subscribe if you are watching from YouTube. And like I said, come say hi over on socials because I love connecting and I love knowing what resonates with you. And I love just being able to be of service to you in this way. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. All right, guys, have a great week. Love you. Bye.